Usopp is a straw hat that probably undergoes the most scrutiny due to his cowardly demeanor and in recent years lack of focus, at least in the fighting department. Now, while I don't think Usopp should be completely absolved of all of the slander he gets, I do think that some of it is unjustified. For example, the fact that people think Usopp was all on this debate proves that the Usopp disrespect is getting out of hand. Usopp is in my opinion probably the most underrated Straw Hat in terms of battle prowess, and I want to prove that in today's video by going over how many of the pre-timeskip main villains I think current Usopp can defeat in a fight. For the most part I will be sticking to the main villains, but I think whenever an interesting conversation about a side villain pops up I will mention it. Now for this discussion we're going to have two rounds. Round 1 is going to be Usopp with 0 prep time, and we're also going to erase all of his memories of facing them before. So it's basically going to be a fresh fight, it's going to be like the first time both these fighters have seen each other. And we're also going to assume that the fight happens in a neutral battleground so that neither side has an advantage. Round 2 is only going to happen if Usopp loses round 1, and that's going to be Usopp with prep time against the villain and his memories are going to be returned. So if he remembers anything that could help, like a weakness that he's learned and anything about the abilities, he's going to have it this time. And for prep time, we're going to allow him to gain any extra equipment that he can get, assuming it's reasonable for him to get this extra equipment, but he won't be allowed to do things like set traps on the battlefield beforehand. Okay, without further ado, let's get into Usopp scaling. Usopp is probably most well known for how much punishment he can take. You see during him and Chopper's fight against Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. Four that Usopp can survive being dragged through concrete multiple times and even getting his skull cracked. And he not only survives but is able to keep going after this and finish the fight. On Water 7, Usopp takes a bunch of punishment to the point he's covered in bandages, and after just a day of rest he's able to participate in the raid on Ennie's lobby. And Usopp takes a lot of damage on Ennie's lobby as well, don't get it twisted. He takes some minor damage in the sea train from Robin and a kick from Bluno. Then he takes several attacks from Jabra and is able to keep moving and snipe the marines around Robin all the way from Tower of Justice. Usopp then takes a dive off the roof of the Tower of Justice as he was shot by a marine warship and is able to keep going after this after taking more visible damage. This is all a testament to his insane endurance as he's doing all this while already extremely injured. Post timeskip we know he still has some pretty good durability because he can take several attacks from ulti and presumably page 1. We know he took a few attacks off panel and then she cracks his skull and he takes even more and can keep fighting, so we know Usopp can take this level of attack. This being impressive because ulti is able to overwhelm base Onigashima Luffy and even make him think Gear 4 is his only option. This is wildly impressive because base Onigashima Luffy can take hits from Kaido which Act 1 Gear 4 Luffy couldn't, which scales Usopp to insane levels of durability. Now just to be clear, I'm not saying Usopp is at or above Act 1 Gear 4 levels of durability. The reason Luffy got one shot is because he got blitzed and the second time around he read the future to brace himself. But the reason I still grant this as upscale for Usopp is because Gear 4 on average is more durable than base Luffy, so even though base Luffy did brace himself, it's still a base Luffy versus a Gear 4 Luffy's durability. And one was able to have a whole fight and the other one got one shot. Relating this back to Ulti, who was able to do similar damage to Luffy as Kaido's first Thunderbago on the roof, it's clear Usopp's durability and endurance is on insane levels to be taking multiple of these hits and keep going. A good baseline for Usopp's speed starts during pre-timeskip where he's able to casually dodge several of Enel's lightning attacks, most of which Usopp dodges while talking to Nami and not even focusing on Enel fully, showing Usopp is quite easily moving faster than lightning. In fact, it's due to Usopp dodging so many of Enel's attacks, he literally goes out of his way to pin Usopp down so that he can hit him with an attack, which I think is a testament to Usopp's speed here, since Enel has to pin him down to hit him. This is obviously a pre-timeskip Usopp, and he would only get faster from here. As for the speed of his attacks, we know he can fire off plants to combo with post-timeskip Zoro, who is sprinting to use his Shishi Sanson, which is one of, if not his fastest attack, and Usopp's trampoline moves faster than post-timeskip Zoro. You could argue Zoro isn't going all out here, which I think is fine, but he's definitely not holding back an insane amount either, since before this none of Zoro's attacks were doing any sort of damage, so he's definitely trying a lot more here. Usopp also is capable of tagging multiple post-timeskip opponents like Ulti, Page 1 Saturn and Caesar, but all these cases have caveats, like Ulti and Page 1 weren't taking him super seriously, Caesar stopped to talk before Usopp hit him, and he was able to dodge hits from Saturn whose attacks were pressuring Gear 5 Luffy, but you could argue Saturn wasn't going all out. But considering his goal was killing Robin, who's like a massive threat to the world government, I don't think it's too insane to argue that Usopp could scale to this level of speed just dodging wise. Now Usopp doesn't have many physical attacking feats, but he does have probably the most diverse arsenal in the series, which is gonna come in handy with a lot of his opponents. Usopp's standard shots aren't anything to write home about. Like sure, they can one-shot fodder, but considering who he's going up against, I don't think he's gonna use any vanilla shots unless he needs them for a distraction or to set up another attack. Now Usopp doesn't seem to carry most of his pre-timeskip gear with him anymore post-timeskip, which does kinda suck, because he did have a lot of good gear with him that was useful for pre-timeskip villains, where things are extremely situational and you need random stuff. But he does still use Firebird Star though, which will come in handy. His pop greens do have a lot of versatility though that does make up for it. Now as for the pop greens themselves, yeah, they're low-key insane. Like the sheer amount of stuff this guy has on hand is nuts. I can guarantee you do not remember his entire kit. Starting off with his basic offensive pop greens like the Skull Bomb Grass, Bamboo Javelin, and Impact Wolf, all of these are capable of taking out hordes of the new Fishman pirates. Fishmen are all stated to be 10 times stronger than the average human, and these are Fishman pirates, and Usopp is dispatching them all like it's nothing. He's also capable of beating one of Hodi's officers who, on top of being a fishman and a pirate, was also hopped up on the energy steroid, and Usopp practically one-shots him with Impact Wolf. This officer being so much of a non-threat to Usopp that Usopp was having conversations with Chopper and glazing Frankie's lasers mid-fight because of how confident he was that he could win the fight. He's capable of having Kuro Kabuto eat chunks of a warship, potentially being able to even crunch up steel beams. Breaking or cutting steel was a big deal in early One Piece, and one of the post-time skip weakest attacks can do that casually. If you even call that an attack, it's actually only set up for the actual attack that comes later. Like, don't forget, this attack is the attack that ultimately defeated Caesar at the end of the arc. There are also a bunch of other attacks like his shuriken and his grenades that he used on Wano, plus his like fireworks explosions that he used on page 1. All in all, he's got a lot of offensive options. Usopp also has a lot of pop greens which serve the function of incapacitating enemies. His most used one is the Green Devil, which is capable of incapacitating Hybrid Ulti, and she screamed for page 1 to help her, and he had to cut off the stem of the devil to save her. Now page 1 does claim she could have escaped alone, but incapacitating a Toby Roper at all is impressive. Devil also has acid in it, so for lesser opponents it will corrode them after they're captured. He also has his Rafflesia, however you say that, which is essentially a stink bomb. A much better attack of his is Sleep Star, which can put opponents to sleep and leave them susceptible to attacks. Having these options available is gonna make it so that even if Usopp is struggling to hit his opponent, he's gonna be able to put them in a position to be able to hit them with his stronger attacks. Usopp was also capable of damaging page 1 with what's implied to be one of his weaker attacks as he's trying to create distance between them, and this draws blood from page 1. He then fires a cluster of bombs which ends with page 1 wheezing after, and being so mad about it he wants to dismember Usopp, so clearly it wasn't meaningless. Now sure, this doesn't mean he scales to page 1 exactly, but being able to damage a Tobiropo at all is great, especially considering he's going up against pre-timeskip opponents. Now that we have all that out of the way, let's get into the matchups themselves. Look, I'm not gonna waste your time here. Usopp completely stomps every East Blue main villain, probably at the same time if I'm being honest. People like Alvida and Buggy were getting one shot by East Blue Luffy, so Usopp is taking them all out with one Firebird Star each, maybe even just a Bamboo Javelin to wipe them all out at the same time. Captain Kuro is fast, so he might pose a slight issue, but he's nowhere near as fast as Usopp, and even if Usopp struggles to hit him directly, Usopp has the AoE Skull Bomb Grass, who can put Kuro to sleep and then hit him. Don Krieg's armor and weaponry may seem tough by East Blue standards, but Usopp can immobilize him with his Green Devil, which Krieg is not breaking out of, and then Usopp can just rain down Firebird Stars on Krieg until he's KO'd. As for Arlong, which I'm gonna spend a bit more time on because of people that think Usopp can't beat him, Usopp was literally cleaning house with Fishmen the entirety of the Fishman Island arc. And the Fishmen that Usopp was swatting away like flies were also all getting amped by energy steroids too, so it's very possible that a lot of those random fodder Fishmen were around Arlong in strength. Like, I know that may sound crazy, but Arlong was power clipped to hell and back by this point, and even if we say all of this fodder is Chew level, who was an East Blue Usopp victim by the way, they're all amped and their amps meant nothing to Usopp. No matter how you slice it, Arlong is getting bullied. Like, even if you want to bring up how Arlong was a big name on the Fisher Tiger pirates, those pirates were bombs. Like, the only reason Fisher Tiger's bounty was as high as it was because he attacked Mary Jaw, which we now know was thanks to Shanks. So even Fisher Tiger was a Mickey Mouse bounty, like he was not that guy. Like, if you go back to his flashback, we see bro died of 40 Marines, no-name Marines, bro, we don't even know if they're ranked. Like, I don't think the Rear Admiral there lifted a single finger to kill Fisher Tiger. The fact that Arlong was third in a crew, captained by a guy who lost to a group of people I'm convinced East Blue Luffy is capable of taking out, isn't good for him. All this coupled with the fact that Usopp has a bunch of extra utility tells me Usopp stomps no diff, especially when his attacks are one-shotting Holy Knights and can somewhat damage Toby Roper. This isn't an argument, Usopp stomps Arlong. Smoker immediately poses a problem for Usopp since he's made of smoke. I think that in all likelihood if he were to be put in a battleground with a low gear, he just won't immediately have a strategy in play, and considering his opponent, I think a loss is very possible, so I'm gonna give him an L for round 1. Granted, it won't be an easy W for Smoker by any means, and Usopp can take multiple hits from ulti, and pre-timeskip Smoker has nothing that can output that level of power, but if Usopp doesn't figure out a way to hit him before Smoker whittles him down, he will lose. I do see a way to do this though for prep time Usopp. Smoker, despite being a gaseous Logia, is not immune to the effects of gas. We see him wear a gas mask when going to Punk Hazard due to caution of the potential gas on the island, which proves gas does affect him. So Usopp, if he knows what he's up against, could hit him with Sleep Star and then finish him off with any number of attacks. We know Smoker when off guard didn't have his Logia active, so this is the only way I see Usopp winning, so I think Usopp can take a round 2 W since he's faster than Smoker and can take any of his hits. Now if you want to say Usopp figures out the gas weakness during round 1 and he uses it to win, I think that's fine. The only reason I don't subscribe to it is because if you see a gas man, why would you assume gas works in it? Like Usopp, who remembers Punk Hazard and has prepared for a fight with Smoker, would be far more likely to employ the strategy, which is why I only brought it up for round 2. Usopp handles Vivi and Mr. 9 like it's nothing, and he also clears out the entire island of Whiskey Peak with no difficulty. I don't think there's anyone repping Miss Monday, Mr. 9, or any of those random bounty hunters, and they're all fodder, so I don't think I have to explain why he wins here. For anyone who wants to bring up Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine, pre-timeskip Usopp on Little God was already able to take Mr. 5's explosions and keep going. And none of these, just be honest, whatever her name was, the one who flippin' has the kilo food, she's not being able to output ulti levels of attack power. This isn't a close fight at all. Usopp just stomps. As for Little Garden itself, I do believe Usopp is stronger than everyone here, but strength isn't everything in a fight, and the dreaded Miss Golden Week is on Little Garden. Now if Usopp gets caught by a color trap, yeah, it's an instant GG, and since in round 1 Usopp will have no memory of her power and won't be on guard for it, I think he takes the L here. In round 2 though, I think he takes the W quite easily. We see with Caesar that Usopp does analyze the traits of past opponents and thinks of ways to counter them for when he faces them again, and with Miss Golden Week the strategy is simple, just don't get hit, and that's something Usopp can easily do. Usopp can put down everyone there quite easily. Usopp can do things like send a cascade of grenades at them, plus Usopp might genuinely just be able to use Firebird Star to melt the mech and just win. Usopp overall wins low diff, with Miss Golden Week being the one thing he has to look out for. Wapol is weird. If Usopp tries attacking him with conventional means like trapping with Devil, Wapol might genuinely just eat his way out. That being said, I don't see Wapol taking the Impact Wolf, especially if Usopp sets up the attack with Sleep Star or Firebird Star into Wapol's mouth, and then Impact Wolf was skull bombing him. So yeah, this matchup might be a bit tricky because of Wapol's fruit, but I think Usopp still got it. Now before we get into Crocodile, I think Usopp vs Mr. 1 is an interesting conversation because Mr. 1 is made of steel. Now while Usopp does have an attack where he can make the slingshot eat stuff, where it literally eats chunks of a navy ship and potentially even steel beams, getting close enough to get the slingshot to eat Mr. 1 is not going to be easy. Plus I think it's just insanely out of character. Usopp literally shows extreme regret when he blows Gunko's torso off, so I doubt he tried to employ a strategy that involves brutally ripping chunks off someone. I do believe there are ways Usopp can pull the strategy off, I just don't think he would do it. Now Usopp has other strategies. For example, he has several ways to immobilize Daz's bones and then from there fire multiple Firebird Stars to try and weaken his metal exterior using heat before launching his more physical attacks. There's also a chance Impact Wolf might ignore conventional durability. Okay, just bear with me for a second. Impact Wolf is described by Usopp as a shockwave with a 3-meter radius. The reason I say it might ignore conventional durability is because Jinbei describes Fishman Karate as sending shockwaves to affect water in an opponent's body, which is why it can ignore conventional and sometimes unconventional durability. Now there is the argument that Fishman Karate could just be mechanistically different, which I think is a perfectly valid stance to have. I just think it's worth noting that it uses shockwaves to bypass durability, and that's exactly what Impact Wolf does as well. What could add to this is that Lucci's 6 King gun, which did insane damage to Luffy who's super resistant to blood force damage, also used a shockwave, and that adds credit to this theory. But either way, Usopp still has the upper hand since he can continually immobilize Daz's bones and rain down attacks until Daz's bones goes down. Like we know Devil Fruits aren't necessarily always active, as Smoker was tagged by Luffy in Alabasta when Luffy came flying in off guard, so if Usopp puts Daz's bones to sleep, attacks him, or does a more lethal thing like shoving a grenade down his throat or having the slingshot eat him, he can win. All in all, Usopp does win, but bypassing Mr. 1's defense is going to be integral to that win. On to Crocodile. Let's be honest, if Usopp gets touched, it's wraps. Luckily, Usopp is a long-range fighter, so those chances are a lot lower than most other fighters, but that move of Crocodile's is definitely his most notable win con. Now, while the problem would be actually touching Usopp in the round 1 scenario has zero clue what Crocodile's kit is, so he wouldn't be wary of getting touched, and Crocodile has a lot of ways to immobilize Usopp and limit his mobility with attacks like sand tornadoes and blades that he can just send all over the field. So I think in all likelihood Usopp will probably lose if he doesn't know what to expect. For round 2, Usopp knowing Croc's kit and prepping for the fight skews us a lot in his favor. Usopp has a way to counter Crocodile's intangibility since he has a flower that can spew water, so if Usopp starts the fight aggressive, hitting him with that, and Crocodile's main defense is now gone, from there Usopp can rain down attacks till he wins. Now Crocodile can still rain down attacks, but with Usopp knowing what he's up against, bombarding a tangible Crocodile with impact walls, grenades, shurikens, firebird stars, it's gonna make it infinitely more difficult. Now I don't think Usopp will be able to utilize Devil as much since Crocodile can just absorb its moisture to escape, but that brief moment of doing that, Usopp can use to set up more attacks and he is fast enough to. All in all, this is definitely Usopp's toughest fight so far, but I think with prep he can win. Usopp vs Enel is an interesting conversation because Enel is honestly the hardest opponent for Usopp to deal with from an offensive standpoint. Immediately we gotta address the problem that his mantra / observation haki. Now at face value this is gonna throw a wrench in a lot of Usopp's plans because Enel will be able to sense a lot of them coming. But Usopp is just way faster, so the observation haki will probably just not matter since we know even future sight users can just get blitzed if there's an overwhelming difference in speed. And Enel is nothing to get into Usopp's level. Usopp's only win con though is Sleep Star, and if Enel is super cautious he can avoid it. But I just don't think that's in character for Enel since he'd just be taking attacks because he feels invincible, so he might just fall prey to it because he thinks it's a normal attack that can't hurt him, and that will be his downfall. Like I've said before, low gears aren't always invincible, so if Usopp gets him to sleep it's GG. But if Usopp can't do that in round 1 and loses, he's definitely pulling it off in round 2 once he knows more about it now. So all in all, Usopp is getting a win somehow. I'm not talking about Foxy. As for our Kiji, yeah, let's just move on. Lucci just simply isn't fast enough to keep up with Usopp. Hell, current Lucci probably can't since Luffy was at least sleeping during their fight, but Luffy was calling it close when dodging Saturn and Usopp was also dodging Saturn, so Lucci just isn't tagging him. Lucci also doesn't have intangibility to get around Usopp's arsenal, so he's getting Lucci in a devil and raining down attacks. Lucci isn't going to be able to handle a barrage from someone who can hurt a Tobiropo and might also have Duranick, so yeah, Usopp is taking this. Okay, so obviously Thriller Bark has two main villains, those being Oz and Moria, so let's start off with Oz. Usopp isn't getting hit here, but beating Oz is going to be a problem. Oz doesn't feel pain, so Usopp is going to have to rain down attacks until Oz literally cannot physically move anymore, and honestly I just don't know if Usopp has the level of power necessary to do this. It took all the Straw Hats planning and working together plus Nightmare Luffy to immobilize Oz, and I'm not even sure something like Sleep Star is going to work this time around because Oz is a zombie and Devil can't be used because Oz is too big. Plus at some point if Usopp starts making any headway, Moria will start assisting and getting in Usopp away with bats and shadows, and these distractions will nullify Usopp's speed advantage and he'll end up losing. Honestly, I don't even think prep time fixes this because Usopp just doesn't have anything to deal with Oz fast enough so Moria doesn't become an issue. Now if we do give Usopp prep time and his memories and have him go up against an Oz without Moria, I think Usopp does win since Oz has a weakness being salt, and Usopp when they fought originally was able to get the salt in Oz's mouth, but like the first time they fought, if Moria is in play this weakness gets nullified since he's guarding Oz's mouth. So the only W Usopp can take is against no Moria Oz with prep, otherwise it's out. As for Moria with the 1000 shadows, he literally splits the island. And considering Moria didn't break his arm or start spitting up shadows after throwing this punch, that means he can take attacks at this level without spitting up shadows due to Newton's third law. This means Usopp is gonna have to pull something out that can do this to an island, and I'm sorry, he just doesn't have it. Prep time also isn't gonna fix this, so unfortunately Usopp takes the hard L in Thriller Bark. What do you want me to say about this? Actually, we saw this in canon, he got choked out instantly, so I'm not gonna waste time on this. I don't even think Usopp's beating a Pacifista since Luffy needed help from the whole crew to beat one, and Luffy was capable of putting down Moria. Say Moria who can take these ground splitting attacks, and Usopp just isn't pulling this off, especially since his opponent is a robot who has no biology to exploit. For round 2, for prep we give Usopp Bonnie so that he has master control. Alright, in all seriousness, I don't know what prep Usopp is making to beat this thing. It took the full crew to beat one pre-timeskip, coming out of it, Zoro and Sanji had to combo one and Luffy used gear 2, and outside of speed I don't see a way to get Usopp to these levels. He's super versatile, but just doesn't have the attacking feats. even what should be his most impressive feat, one-shotting Unko, doesn't matter because he scales nowhere, so I can't use that to prove anything. So I think Usopp just gets hard stuck here since his opponent has no biological weakness to exploit. Usopp isn't doing anything here, bro. And with that, we've reached the end of pre-timeskip. I hope this video was able to at least shine some light on Usopp's kit and some of his feats. I do think he's pretty underrated. It just sucks that despite all of his versatility, Oda just doesn't give him enough combat feats considering he's literally a combatant role on the ship. He did pretty well at the start, it was just near the end when the giants and robots and admirals started showing up when Usopp couldn't keep up anymore. And honestly, I think that's fine, because be honest, outside of the monster trio, how many Straw Hats do you think are soloing orbs? But hopefully Usopp gets a massive buff in L buff, because surely it's still going to be his arc, right? But with that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, or night, whenever you're watching this, and I hope to see you all next time.